Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to pull a motor and transmission out of this 59 Impala. Kind of walk you guys through how we're going to do this here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with getting this radiator and core support off the car. Luckily I already have the fenders and inner wheel wells and everything off the car, so that's going to save quite a bit of time. So first thing we're going to do is, and the car is not all wired too, so we don't have to worry about that. So we are going to get this voltage regulator off, and then we'll take the fan shroud off and the radiator and get all that out, and then we will unbolt the core support. I probably won't video the whole entire process. I'll probably just kind of skip from one to the next, because it'll take, probably going to take about hour and a half to get it out, just because I'm sure there's going to be some bolts and stuff that are probably stuck. For now, I'm going to take all these nuts and bolts and put them in my tray over here. I have a little cart set up over here with just some basic hand tools, and I'm going to put all the parts in the lower down there, stick all my nuts and bolts over there for now, and I'll just kind of keep them in that cart until I'm ready to put the motor back in. So we got that voltage regulator off. It wasn't even plugged in. We're going to take these straps off. I have new ones because every time you pull on these, they just break off. So we're just going to get those off. Now the core support and the fan shroud, it's all nicely painted. I'm going to scuff it down and put another coat of paint on it just to freshen it up. Yeah, this is just, and the wiring harness here, what I'll probably do is just retape it with electrical tape so it looks new. There is a cut wire here. I'm not sure what that is. To me, it looks like it's probably a ground wire, but we'll have to wait and see what that is. Stick that harness in the car for now. This upper radiator hose is already disconnected. There's no radiator fluid in it. This motor is going to have to get rebuilt. I know nothing about it, so it's best to just get it pulled out. Pull off the shroud here. Now, let me go grab my drill, make this a little bit quicker here. All right. Sorry about that, I got a phone call. Okay, so I just put a half-inch socket with an extension onto my little impact here. Save a little bit of time. The fan's already been off the motor. That wasn't on the car when I got it here. So there's our fan shroud. We'll just put that off to the side. We just got to disconnect the lower radiator hose and the two lines for the transmission cooler. Let me go grab a container. I don't know if there's transmission fluid in this or not. All right, I just got a little bucket here that we can just put under those lines. Like I said, I'm not sure if that transmission has fluid in it or not yet. I just stuck a piece of plywood on the floor to kind of protect it. Try not to get as much fluid everywhere. I'm gonna stick on some gloves. All right. I don't try not to get a bunch of grease and stuff on my hands, especially when I'm doing body work. Dripping a little bit. I think it's empty. At least these lines are empty. I'm sure there's probably transmission fluid in the transmission. I checked the dipstick, there was nothing on it, but that doesn't mean anything because it hasn't been run or anything. Okay, those are loose, off. Just got to get that lower radiator hose disconnected, which these are all garbage as well. We're going to get rid of them. Just going to cut the hose. A little bit of water in it. Somebody put straight water in here, no way in a freeze. We'll let that drain for a couple minutes. Okay, there was just literally straight water in that bottom of that radiator and in the motor, and it's rusty. So zero antifreeze whatsoever. Probably gonna need a new radiator too. Because if you look inside of here, we're either get it rebuilt. I don't know if you can see that, it's just full of rust. Put that off to the side. Might be able to flush it out, not sure. All right, that's done. I usually don't like pulling motors in the shop up front here because this is where I do body work and I try not to get a bunch of grease everywhere. Somebody had, looks like they were trying to start it with a push button or something. They have this wired into the starter, or actually it's just clipped onto the starter. So we'll take that off. Put that off to the side. We're going to get this ground strap off the motor next. I think it's a 9/16, maybe a 1/2 inch. We're going to just throw this away. We're going to throw this away. We'll get new cables. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing or not. Save the port cable is garbage. It's not even the right style cable. That's for a side post mount, and these cars had a top post mount. Now this is the power wire coming from the starter, which we will replace that as well. We're just going to put that over top of the motor for now. Now we have to undo the gas line, which is just a rubber hose. That isn't even clamped. Might even be able to pull it off. Okay, that's disconnected. Now we have, I think we're going to take the manifolds off, the exhaust manifolds. We'll pop those off, get them out of the way. This side's missing the pipe going back to the muffler. This side has it. Yeah, let's take the manifolds off now. we can get to them pretty easily. Get this bracket out of the way. This is the bracket that holds the generator on. Take this out of the way. We'll put this in the bottom of the cart. Okay, this side's out. We'll just leave that off like that for now, because it's not going to want to come out with that steering column there. We're going to do the same thing on this side. This side has the pipe and the muffler, so we're probably going to have to go underneath and disconnect it. These cars are kind of pain in the butt to get the bolts where the pipe meets the manifold. Kind of hard to get underneath there. It'd be nice if we could sneak this out, the pipe out with it on this side, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to. Okay, this side's down. All these gaskets are garbage. They'll get replaced. The manifolds will get sandblasted and painted. Even when you sandblast and paint these manifolds, they end up rusting. This stupid wire is going to end up being in the way for me. So we got to get this manifold disconnected. I think we're going to have to just go underneath and do it. So what I'll probably have to do is pause it and disconnect the manifold from the pipe right there. Looks like now that I unbolted it from the motor, it's farther away, and I should be able to get up there and get those two bolts out. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this. I'm going to get under there and disconnect both sides, and I'll be back. I'm getting ready to go under there and disconnect those exhaust bolts, but I was getting ready to get down. Look at the sludge and rust inside of this radiator pipe. That's horrible. Okay, I got them disconnected from below. Should be able to just pull them out now. They were barely even tight. Stick those in the bottom of the cart. We'll have to get new gaskets. The exhaust manifolds are out. This side, the pipe's out because the muffler's not there. Okay, now we will be ready for the engine mount bolts and get those loosened up next. There's usually a ground strap to the firewall, but I'm not seeing one. And we're going to lift this motor out with the transmission attached. You know what? Before we do the motor mounts, let's get this core support off. Let's get this out of the way so it's not in our faces. Not even tight. Finger tight. frame looks like it's in really good shape. It's been redone. It's clean. The whole front part, I'm going to end up sanding down and repainting it satin black just to freshen it up and make it look new. Okay, core support's out of the way. Now, I did not pre-loosen any of this stuff on the car. This is literally how the car came, with just half put together, which makes it easier for me. But if they think that they were going to drive it like that, I don't know. Wipe up some of this water here. I hope that transmission's empty. Because once you start jacking this up out of here on an angle, then the transmission starts tipping down and all the fluid runs out all over the floor. So hopefully we can avoid some of that. I don't know, we'll see. So now we have engine mount bolts. There's one here and there's one on this side. This side's always hard to get to because you have your fuel pump right here. So you can do one of two things. You can remove the fuel pump to get easier access to that, but luckily they put these in the right direction because the nut's on this side and the bolt's on that side. So we should be able to leave the fuel pump on, loosen this nut, slide the bolt out that way. We'll do that on both sides. And I believe that's a 5/8 or 11/16. Okay, this side's a 5/8. The bolt side is a 5/8. I want to say the nut side might be 11/16. Yep, it's 11/16 on the nut side. Let's see if this little impact has enough. Who knows, these might not even be tight. I have no idea yet. They were sort of tight. Not a lot. And they're sliding right out. Now if you get that lucky and you can slide it out, go for it. The engine will only fall down a little bit. I guarantee I won't be able to get that side out. It's probably sitting on it. But I put the washer and the nut back together so that they're all together and we know where it goes. Loosen up this side. This side I might not be able to get the impact in there. Might have to do this side by hand more than likely because it's starter. Well, it's spinning. Yeah, these people didn't tighten up anything right. And the bolt slid right out of this one too. Wow. Impressive. Try to get my nut and washer back. So I have to crawl around on the floor and get it. Once again, we'll just stick that together. And I found my missing washers and nut for my exhaust manifold that fell. They're on the frame right here. Okay, now that's done. Believe it or not, because this motor really wasn't together much, I have to disconnect the linkage for the shifter, which is back in this area here. See if I can adjust you guys. If you can see this or not, there's a linkage rod right here. This goes down to the transmission. There is another rod right here, which goes up to the carburetor right here. And this locks in for the kickdown cable. Sorry about that, another phone call. Okay, so we need to disconnect the cable, or this line going to the transmission. This is the shifter. This moves the shifter up and down. And then this other linkage right here, this is the kickdown cable, so that you know, when you're driving and you give it a bunch of gas, it's going to kick it down into a lower gear for going up hills and stuff like that. So we need to take that off and the other rod off. And I'm going to take it off from the transmission and from above, and we're going to remove the whole assembly so that we can clean it up. And also it'll be out of the way so that when we're pulling this out, we don't snag on it. This is a 7/16 nut right there. We'll get that off first. That's actually a 1/2 inch. Make sure you don't lose this hardware. So now that loosens this rod up. So this rod will move freely up and down. Once I disconnect it from down there, we could just slip it down through. I'm going to go ahead and put this clamp back on, but I'm only going to put it on just enough for the nut and washer to not get lost. So we'll stick that back on there and just spin this on a little bit so that where we don't put tension on the rod again. Okay, I'm going to pause this. I'm going to go underneath. I'm going to disconnect the 2 rods from down below. Okay, shifter linkage is taken off. Make sure you put your washers and your clip back on. This is a special clip they use for this linkage. It's actually on backwards right now. Technically it should go on the other way. This way. There we go. Just keep it all together so you don't lose it. The other linkage is disconnected for the kick down. I cannot take it off until I take the motor out because it's bolted on the back of the motor with a bracket. So as of right now, everything up front is disconnected. I have to go underneath and disconnect the transmission cross member. And I don't know if there's a speedometer cable on the transmission or not yet. I have to check. So I'm going to go under there and get that done, and then after that we should be ready to get the engine lift hooked up to the motor and start pulling this motor out. Okay, transmission cross members out, and this is all the hardware for it. I think what I'm probably going to do is get new nuts and bolts. I usually like to put new stuff on there. We'll see. I'm either going to clean these up or I'll get new grade 8 bolts because I like it when you have nice new bolts. It just looks nice and clean. All right, so transmission is unbolted from underneath. Cross member is out. I have a jack underneath the transmission right now, and I have jack stands underneath the frame of the car. So now the next step would be we need to get the motor hooked up to the engine lift, and then we could try starting to pull this out of here. I did drain the transmission. There really wasn't any fluid in it, but who knows? Once we start putting it on an angle, if more fluid will start coming out or not. So I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to hook up this engine lift. Okay, I loosened up one of these intake bolts because we're gonna hook up the chains to the 4 outer intake bolts. We gotta get a little bit longer bolts, so let's run in the back here and see what we have for bolts. I'm gonna use a grade 8 bolt rather than, these are some parts that I sandblasted for the car. We're gonna use some grade 8 bolts and some washers. I should have some in the container here so I can draw it down as grade 8 bolts. So I wanna get a little bit longer than what these are because of the thickness of the chain plus the washer. So these are 3/8. 1.25 inches is a little bit longer. Let's go 1.5 inches. So we need 4 1.5 inches, which are longer so that it'll accept the length of the thickness of the chain. And we're gonna need some washers. Just to be on the safe side to make sure that chain doesn't go through. Some 3/8 washers. We're gonna get this chain hooked up. I don't know if I'm gonna have to pull the carburetor and distributor or not yet. I'm hoping not to, but we'll see what happens. I'm gonna take these old bolts and just put them off to the side because I'm gonna put them back in the intake afterwards. I have to put it through here first. I'm not worried about this carburetor. It's missing a bunch of parts and stuff. What I want to do is get this chain so that's the same length. And there we go. And then we'll get this bolted on. You want to try to get these in all the way. You don't want to just go in a thread or two because that's a lot of weight for that little bit to hold. I do have a plate that goes on the intake that you can hook to pull the motor, but I'm going to pull it with the transmission on it, and that usually doesn't work as good. This works better because you can crank it back and forth, the balance, you know, to balance out the weight of the transmission so it's not tipping real bad on you. I've done it before with the plate, and it just really tips back. You gotta leave a jack underneath it the whole time, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. I usually pull motors by myself, so I try to make it as easy as possible on myself. This old fuel line is in the way. The other side bolted on, and then I will pause it and I will get the back bolted on, and then I'll come back. No point in watching me fight bolting a chain on the motor. All right, I'm back. I have it all hooked up here. I might have to lower this down. I might have to unbolt it and bolt it a little bit lower because I don't know how much higher this is going to go up, this engine lift. So let's start cranking it now and see if we can't get it off the frame, and we'll see what it looks like. but I'm thinking we might have to re-bolt that down. The windshield washer, or windshield wiper motor is in the way. Just trying to get that out of here. I had unbolted it the other day, and then come to realize that there was a bracket for the spark plug wires that were in the way. Well, it's sort of out of the way for now. And we can crank this so that we get this more towards the back. I don't know which way that's going. All right. What I'm trying to do is balance it so that, because the transmission on it, it's got a lot more weight going that way. The jack is still underneath the transmission in the back. Okay, we're gonna roll it back just a little bit. The jack is holding me up. Maybe I can crank this back some more. When you're doing this stuff, try not to get underneath it at all. If something were to break, you don't want to smash yourself. Okay, I let the transmission down now, so it's kind of just hanging here on its own. There's still a jack stand under the car, so we technically could jack the car up and lower it, which I think that's what I'm going to do. Let me get that jack stand off from underneath here real quick. And there goes the transmission fluid, starting to leak all over the floor. I'm going to take a bucket for a minute and let it drain. All right, I'm going to let this sit for a minute and let the transmission fluid drain out. I left the transmission, or the drive shaft still attached in the rear, and I just yanked it forward and slid the drive shaft out of the transmission for now. Obviously when we go put it back together, we'll have to take the drive shaft out, but I always paint the drive shaft and usually change the U-joints. So if these U-joints haven't been changed, we'll change those out. All right, not too big of a mess under there so far. I had forgot to disconnect the throttle linkage, so I did just do that. So now we could jack it up a little bit more. We have to get it past this starter. This starter is hitting the back of the motor mount, so we need to bring it up a little higher. I'm going to see if I can't jack the back up a little bit more first. Okay, jack it up a little bit higher. It's actually lifting the car up because we're stuck on the starter. Let that transmission drain a little bit more. I think I'm cranking this the wrong way. All right, we're free. Still want to try to crank this. I think I'm going the right way now. I think I was going the wrong way. Looking real good there. Let me push the car back a little bit. Okay. Let it sit here for a minute and drain. Luckily, there wasn't a lot of transmission fluid in it. That's the nice thing about having a painted shop floor, is that it wipes up pretty good. It doesn't tend to absorb into the concrete. Yes, you have to clean and repaint it every year, but I think it's well worth it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move you guys over here, and we're gonna get this spun around and put onto this piece of plywood right here, so that we can unbolt the transmission. Okay, we're gonna let this down a little bit. I don't want to put all the weight on the oil pan. I just want it to sit down enough to get that transmission off. All right, I'm going to pause it for a minute. I'm going to clean up this mess. Okay, let's get the starter off first. I let the motor down. I cranked that back just to kind of level it out. So now we're going to get the starter off. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this old cable off, and we're going to throw it away. Probably end up getting a new starter. I'm not sure yet. This cable we're going to toss. I like using red and black cables so that people know what's positive and what's negative. I don't think they used red cables back in the day. I want to say they were probably both black. But there's 3 bolts that hold this starter, 2 on the bottom on this side and 1 through the back side. I don't remember on these power glides if there's bolts where the flywheel meets the torque converter, or I think the transmission slides off and the torque converter stays on the motor and then you unbolt it. I forget. Turbo 350, Turbo 400, there's an inspection plate back here that you take off and then you take out the flywheel to torque converter bolts. And we're also going to take off these transmission cooler lines. Put those off to the side. We'll probably just clean those up and reuse them. They're already bent to fit. There's a bracket right here on the back of the transmission that they clip into. Now when you take the starter out, make sure they don't have any shims between the starter and the back of the motor, which it looks like they don't. Maybe one little metal shim. Just make sure you put that back in there, because that's shimming the starter gear to the right depth for the flywheel, for it to match up to the flywheel. Okay, here's our starter. Okay, there's no shims or anything. That's just a metal plate that goes on the back of the motor behind the flywheel. So now that's out, let's work on these transmission cooler lines. I think I'm gonna try to take them off. Leave that adapter on the transmission so that I can spin these off without hopefully twisting the line. Okay. One. Sometimes I'll make new lines, but these are in pretty good shape. I might just wire wheel them up and reuse them. Okay, we'll get these out of the way. Okay, let's get this tube off the back here. This is a vacuum tube. Put that in the bottom of the cart with everything else. Let's get off this shifter linkage. And I think this is a kick down. That's the shifter, it's the kick down linkage. Get this off. Got to make sure you put all this stuff on the back of the motor before you put the motor in. Okay, that's off. I think we're going to lower it down and start separating the transmission. I'm going to take a couple of them out. I forgot there's one on the back side here, right where the oil filter goes. But if I remember correctly, it's not real long. So hopefully we can leave that oil filter on. These motors use a canister filter. It's a metal canister that the filter goes into. Okay, we're loose on that one. Missing a bolt down here, missing a bolt on the other side lower, so they never put those two in. Yep, all the lower bolts are missing. Okay, we're gonna let this down. We didn't take all the tension off of it, we still have some weight on it. Okay. Transmission's free. Got a bunch of water pouring out of the front of the motor. Everywhere. More rusty water. Grab a couple more towels real quick. Okay, let's pull this last bolt out of the top here. Go grab a hammer. We're going to lightly tap on this and see if it comes free. We got to get this off those pins. Grab a screwdriver to put between there to pry it apart. Okay, just grab a crappy screwdriver. Try to get it in between here. Brought a pry bar if I need it. how these came apart. I think it just... It's been a long time since I worked on one. Okay, there are bolts that go through the flywheel into the torque converter, so we're not going to pull it out any farther. We're going to have to spin it around and use this little inspection cover to get those 3 bolts out. I thought there was in there, but technically this, I don't remember if the flywheel, how it's bolted on, but we got an inspection cover back here, so we'll flip this lid, we'll spin the motor around, and we'll get those bolts out. There's either 3 or 4, I don't remember. I haven't done one of these in a long time. Forget sometimes, you know. Okay, scratch. This is the inspection cover. So now we're going to have to spin the motor around and take out the bolts that go from the flywheel into the back of this torque converter. There's one right here. We need to turn the motor. Wonder if we can carefully put this in there and do that. No, it's not the right size. So we're gonna go like this, I think. 1, 2, 3, I think there's 4. All right, I'm gonna pause this and get this spun around and do that. Okay, I'm back. I took out the 3 bolts that were holding in the torque converter to the back of the flywheel. You don't really want to pry on this because this goes into the pump of the transmission. Not a good idea. I probably shouldn't even have showed me trying to do that. But there's going to be fluid in here, so I don't really want to tip it. Plan on reusing this torque converter. These are kind of, I think, getting kind of hard to come by. Not positive, but I know the 348 ones are kind of awkward size compared to these. So I just threaded in the 3 bolts back into the back of the torque converter. I'll lay that down flat because there is fluid in there. I'll get a towel. I think I got a couple paper towels over here. I'll have to get some more, but you want to just kind of block that off, keep dirt from anything falling in there. Now we got to take this flywheel off the back of the motor. That's the next step. I'm going to have to use my air impact to take these off. Okay, we're going to take the flywheel bolts off now. Make sure you save the bolt and the star washer. These are 11/16. Okay, that's off. Now we can take this back plate off. When I was originally trying to take this plate off, I forgot that this had this part right here that goes behind the flywheel. If it didn't have that, we would have been able to tap it out past the flywheel. I haven't done one of these in probably 10 years, maybe 5 to 10 years. So I tend to forget stuff like that. So that's why I'm trying to correct myself and show you guys a proper way of doing it. There's an upper plate right here, which I believe is all loose. Bolts on right there. take my screwdriver again and tap into here. Separate it off this pin. Might have to take this plate off because it looks like it's going to rub behind the crank. Which means I'm going to have to take the oil filter off, which I was hoping not to have to do. But unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to take it off, which is just going to make a bigger mess. That's the only way I'm going to be able to get this plate unbolted. Just flathead. Same screw they used on the little inspection cover where you take it off to take the bolts off the flywheel. Now it looks like I'm going to have to take the oil filter cover off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition this motor so that it's more straight. And then we will get that off and go from there. All right, we're going to lift this up a little bit and get this oil filter canister off so that we get those two screws out for that back tin cover, and then we'll be able to get off this adapter plate. So I jack this up a little bit so that I don't know if there's oil in the motor or not. The dipstick, well, not stuck now, but it was stuck. Yeah, it looks like it has some oil in it, so. This has a canister right here with a 3/4 inch bolt that goes through the center of it. Loosen it up. See how much oil we get draining out of here. This motor looks like it just was sitting in somebody's garage and they just quickly spray canned it and put it in the car. It needs to be completely gone through. It's just a 283. Not a big motor or anything like that. Most of these impalas that I've done in the past, everybody wants a 348 tri-power. That's the big thing. Actually, the oil looks pretty clean, so somebody definitely put no oil in it. What we're going to do is we're just going to drop this canister just long enough to get this back cover off, and we're just going to stick it right back on. Trying not to get it all over my arms and everything else. And this oil and transmission fluid, I'll just put it in the recycling container. This canister, this bolt goes all the way up. It's a real long bolt that goes through the center of the filter. To frame them, I'm going to kind of pour it in there for now. We'll put it back together and stick it back in there. Might as well get some of the oil out of the motor. Okay, now we can get to these two screws and drop this back pan. Probably going to have to get a bigger screwdriver. This one's kind of a baby one. Yep. Oh, one of them came loose. Make sure you hang on to these. These are made, they're real short so that they don't stick through and rub on the back of the flywheel. There is some room there, but you gotta be careful. Don't go driving a bolt through there and have it hang up on that flywheel. You'll get a nasty noise and possibly break your flywheel. Okay, it's one. I wonder if I can lightly tap on this other one and it'll come free. Oh yeah, this is that bolt that we loosened up earlier. It was trapped in place with the oil filter. This one has a bunch of paint built up inside the groove of the slot of the screw. Paint or grease. Got it. Okay. There we go. Now, we should be able to get this plate off, finally. Now what am I missing? I don't think I'm missing anything. I think these studs have some rust on them. I don't want to wail on this thing because it's cast and you can crack it. So I'm just trying to lightly tap it off. You got to kind of go back and forth because you'll get it jammed in there on a weird angle. Probably going to have to put my pry bar on this side because this side keeps going back in. Being stubborn. You don't want to go prying on it real hard either because you can crack it. There we go. Now I'm just going to stick that oil filter canister back on there, and then I'm going to remove a few other parts off the motor, and then that'll be it for this episode. Next time you see this motor, I will have it on an engine stand and getting it prepped for paint so that we can repaint it all Chevy orange. We'll have to reinstall this piece all onto the motor. We'll leave the flywheel off and the torque converter off, and we'll get the motor painted all orange. I think originally I don't know for sure, I'll have to kind of look it up, but I think originally like the fuel pump and stuff like that was orange on these motors, but I'm not sure. So I don't like doing that. I'm just going to take a new one and put it on there. It'll look nice and new. New distributor cap. We'll clean the distributor up. Check the points. Probably change the points. You got to be careful changing these points because the last time I went to the parts store for points and I told them what year, make, and model, they gave me the wrong points. I'm trying to start the car, nothing would happen. They were actually the wrong points for the car. So I ended up, the old ones weren't in real bad shape, so I filed them down and I got them to work. This carburetor, we're going to swap that out for another one. This is missing a bunch of parts. I don't know if they robbed parts off of this one for another motor, but I want to make sure I get this linkage and stuff off of this carburetor before I take the carburetor off. I want to take these ears off of here. These get painted black again. These are what hold all the spark plug wires nicely on the back of each side of the motor. I want to get these tins off of here. These are help protect the spark plug wires from getting burned on the manifolds. Get those out of there. We're gonna have to get this dipstick fixed. As you can tell, it's just a disaster. So get a new one of those. Probably put a new water pump. Yeah, definitely gonna put a new water pump on because of all that rust and everything. And the water pump gets painted the color of the motor. I'm not sure if I'm gonna paint the motor and then take out the intake bolts and drop new ones in just so it looks nice and detailed and the bolt heads are not painted in case you ever need to take it apart again. You're not destroying a bunch of paint, cracking it all apart. But other than that, that's gonna go ahead and end this video. I know I made a few mistakes on here. Hopefully I corrected them for you guys and you guys don't think I'm an idiot. But hey, you know, like I said, it's been a long time since I messed with one of these. I know nothing about that transmission. I might just clean it up and stick it back in and see what it does. It definitely had clean fluid in it. I don't know if somebody just changed the fluid. You know, I just don't know. So we'll just have to play it by ear with that. So other than that, guys, thanks for watching. If you like it, please like and subscribe. And you guys have a good evening.